to another edition of Be the Change Georgia, where we amplify the voices of the inspiring business leaders surrounding the B Corp and social impact movements across the Southeast to help you learn how to build your legacy at the intersection of people, planet, purpose, and profit. Today, there are more than 8,000 B Corps in over 80 countries and 180 different industries, unified by one common goal: transforming the global economy to benefit all people, communities, and the planet. If you want to learn how to plug into our purpose-driven business community alongside the inspiring leaders we feature on this show, check us out at belocalgeorgia.com or on Instagram or Facebook at belocalgeorgia, and we'll hope to meet you at our next event. Today, you'll have the opportunity to learn from Tara Jenkins. Tara was a high-level HR executive at some of the world's largest investment firms, global multinationals, and professional service law firms. She's seen exactly how the sausage is made, and she reached a point where she had to walk away without a plan to keep her soul from being crushed. Now she calls herself a recovering HR professional and leads Conscious Revolution, a social impact organization dedicated to conscious leadership and dismantling the toxic cultures that prioritize risk mitigation over human dignity. In this episode, we unpack the supremacy culture inherent in traditional corporate structures, what it feels like to go from being a powerful executive to a real employee with no protection, and how we can truly reimagine capitalism by reconnecting our heads to our hearts. You'll also hear why the B Corp community has become the essential home for leaders who are washed out from the old way of doing things. Tara's perspective is a powerful reminder that while we all need margin for our mission, we can't have true purpose without honoring the full humanity of our people. Let's get into my conversation with Tara Jenkins. Enjoy. Today's episode of Be the Change Georgia is brought to you by Rataza. Rataza is a B Corp and social enterprise striving to make local food more accessible and affordable while directly supporting our community's farmers, reconnecting consumers to their food, and feeding families struggling with food insecurity. Learn more at rataza.com. Tara Jenkins, welcome to Be the Change Georgia. How are you doing today?
I'm great. Thanks for having me.
I know. I'm glad Elise connected us. So Elise Allen, for those who don't know, in the B Corp space, who I got the chance to, we might have met in person before, but anyway, when I was up in Richmond last year, she's moved to Richmond. And then, so we went and enjoyed a libation together. So, and we've become friends running the B Culture Call, which I've now stepped back from my baby. But anyway, it's great to finally meet the infamous Tara.
Thank you. Yeah, definitely big shout out to Elise. She's been at Conscious Revolution for 5 years now. So we've been doing lots of stuff together. So super cool to bring her in.
Yeah, she's very good people. So it's one of the things that makes the B Corp world, like looking forward to like Champions Retreat and stuff. One of the things that makes the B Corp world so special is that the people within the community that you get to meet and become, like, again, I've been in this now 10 years. Like these are like my best friends in the world now, are all these B Corp people that I met, in New Orleans in 2018 or whatever it was.
Yeah, I think it's the primary reason to be in B Corp world is the community. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. I think looking for that ROI is like, yes, we can talk about retention, and yes, we can talk about customer acquisition, but like there is something to be said about being in a group of like-minded peers as an entrepreneur, that people that see the world this way and who immediately don't think you're crazy for thinking that purpose and profit can coexist.
Yes, it just makes it easier to actually collaborate from there rather than trying to get to that spot together.
Yes, we don't. Yeah, we're already understanding each other. We're already speaking the same language.
Yes, exactly.
Well, I want to get into it because, well, there's a lot to unpack and we only have a limited amount of time. So like talking back, like we'll get to, like, I always like kind of like unpacking the founder story, but we have to like walk back to unpack the founder story. So like early in your career, you told me that there's like a bunch of times that you were put into these like leadership roles that either felt like a stretch or you didn't feel ready for. But there were certain leaders that saw something in you that you had to kind of see what they saw to kind of step into your true leadership. So talk about your evolution and again, I think this will help everybody we all still have it, that imposter syndrome piece, but stepping into your own like leadership shoes as your career evolved.
Yeah, I think how I have learned to think about that is that there was a curiosity and maybe speed of which I was able to learn a little bit faster. And so people were recognizing that piece and sort of pushing me faster than I was recognizing I could have happen. And there's some benefits to that, of course. And I think some of it conditioned me to maybe take more risks that have allowed me to be more comfortable in an entrepreneurial space, where most of my career I was not in an entrepreneurial space. I was in a very like corporate-y, very professional services. Like I would like lots of really like toxic types of cultures, very constraining, suffocating types of cultures, where I didn't really realize that the opportunity for an entrepreneurial type of path, I'd never even been exposed to it. So I guess what I can think of when all of those people were pushing me and thinking about, I'm not ready for this, or this is like way outside of my comfort zone, that it made it possible for me to even consider moving from employment and being inside places to thinking about what I might build for myself and for others in a much more values aligned way. And that the confidence to do that, or what you might say, the leadership to do that, was really pushed from people that when I was inside places saw the possibility for me to be a leader in those places, which convinced me that I could be a leader in other places as well.
It's amazing what a good boss can do.
Yeah, that's so true. And even not even recognizing that maybe those were really good bosses. Again, like when I first came out of college and was starting to work in the world, like the first place I worked at was probably the most mature, really like put together place with really strong leadership comparatively to every other place that I've been. And I didn't know that. I had no other point of comparison. I wasn't able to recognize that. And that's where I had a huge amount of professional development, was my first job. So huge shout out to Lauren and Jay, from the Capital Group companies, and the experiences that they gave me originally that had given me the confidence to do a lot of other things.
Yeah, well, it's hard. Yeah, when you have no frame of reference. I actually was in Iowa last year, and I saw the first boss who ever hired me, and it was like it's not even minor league hockey, but he sponsors juniors, so like kids have to stay. They're under 18, whatever. So he hosts like 5 or 6 players every year. He's been doing it for years. So I went down and texted him, and he brought me down, and like hadn't seen him in 15 years. But yeah, like as I've gotten older, I've appreciated what he did for me and the doors he opened, and just how important that first job was, and even some of the things where you're like, he was yelling at me, and you're like, he was coaching. He was a coach. He's a sports guy. He was sometimes yelling is coaching.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's hard to recognize that. So let's go into this career, because you jokingly call yourself a recovering HR person. So a lot of this corporate career was in HR. How do you? I mean, I guess first of all, when did you realize it was time to transition out? And for somebody who might not know what it means to be a recovering HR person, what does that what does that career entail, and how did it prepare you for this next step?
Yeah. Well, to give a little context to the question, I was educated in human resources, so like that was the thing I started with, and then recruited into human resources. And I just sort of was talking about the first role that I was in, and then stayed in human resources for 20 plus years in all different types of organizations. And so that was what I knew, and that was my orientation to the systems I was in too. Like you're in a different place, and I'm sure people can imagine it in probably different ways. When you're in HR and when you're an HR leader or an HR person, you are oriented to the organization very differently. You see everything. You see all the opportunities and possibilities, and you also see all of the sort of underbelly. I often think about it like when you think about picking up the rock and all the squiggly things come out, like you're seeing that every single day. And so, yeah, it's kind of not for the faint of heart. I didn't necessarily know all that, of course, when I was getting educated in it, and then being in it for a period of time. I think the reason why it came to me one day, and I will be, fully acknowledge this was not a planned thing. This was not a thing I was recognizing on a conscious level for a period of time. It was more one day I just said, if I don't get out of here right now, I think I may never get out. It was kind of like that scenario of like you're realizing like something is really wrong, and I wouldn't be able to say like exactly what it was. I can give words to it now. Like there was a deep values misalignment for me in the work that I was doing in that particular organization, but generally in HR. I had continuously been told by other people that were interacting with me like, hey, you're kind of a different HR person. And I really never knew what that meant. But as I reflect on it now, when you're in those systems, and some of the systems I was in were really like large organizations with big HR functions. When you're in those places, those systems dictate how HR people can be, and they dictate the way that HR people operate because of the power dynamics. And so people do a lot, like recovering HR person, do a lot to, joke about and sometimes not joke about the way HR operates from a fear and compliance perspective, and kind of like a police state, power dynamics, all of those things, and that's all true. And it's because of the way that HR is designed into the system. And then what happens to the people when they're in that system, in that design. So it is by design that HR people turn into the way they are. And I think I would have continued to turn into, let's say, the typical HR person if I had stayed. And so for some reason, like very intuitively or energetically, I knew that in a moment and decided like, I've got to get out of here. And I, in all honesty, didn't have a plan for what that meant. It wasn't like, oh, I got to get out of here and be an entrepreneur. It was, I have to get out of here. It's very clear that I have to do that right now. And I would say that there's probably like some divine intervention there. And no idea what I would be doing next. Of course, as an HR person, that is a very illogical, very antithetical to the business of being in HR, that you give your notice at a high paying, high leadership level in an organization that would make all the sense in the world on your resume. You throw yourself out of there with absolutely no plan and no employment is the opposite of what any HR person should do or would recommend to anyone.
What any parent would tell their kids to do.
No, I would still not recommend that to anybody. I'm grateful for the experience, but it is not the recommended path. And I spend a lot of time with people now in my coaching work with people to say like, okay, what are we noticing is happening for ourselves that we might want to plan for? Because that was the thing I did not do. But then moving out of that to be able to recognize like, okay, I don't think I'm in this moment that I am employable, because all I could see was hypocrisy. And again, because HR, you get exposed to everything.
You get to see how you get to see how the sausage is made.
You see how the sausage is made, and you also see what's said and what's done at a very transparent level. And no matter where I was going in that moment in time, all I could see was what's said and what's done is not matching. And I actually can't like sustain that in the moment. I won't be able to be employed in those places. And that's a lot of places that are what's said and what's done is different. So it led me to be thinking of this opportunity, like, could I create something different that would continuously in my own organization and in myself as a human, which certainly it starts with like what's said and what's done starts with like your own inner work, but that in different rippling effects of having integrity and coherence between what's said and what's done, and alignment between that, like, could I create a place that is continuously striving to do that? And I wouldn't have been able to say that initially, but that's really what's behind Conscious Revolution, is that we're continuously aware and deepening our self-leadership and leadership in community, and aligning what we know is really important to us from a values perspective with how the practices and how we act on the outside.
That's so beautiful, though. Like, I mean, you think about it, you saw how the sausage was made, you've taken the worst of that and then figured out, like, how do you reverse engineer? Like, and maybe I can ask you this, like, what are those? Like, I mean, obviously there's a systemic setup of how we structure those and again, like I've worked at big corporate, like, and I know, like, here's how we do layoffs, and oh, look, there's upward mobility, and like, it's just you
Yeah.
see how it's done, and some do it better than others, and some don't. And how did you take all that though and reverse engineer it to form Conscious Revolution and to work with companies the way you do? And obviously, feel free to like let people know what it is that you do too, so that anybody who hasn't heard of Conscious Revolution, since we're in Georgia here for most part, like, but yeah, how did that shape the work?
Yeah, really great question. Yeah, so Conscious Revolution, we're a social impact organization, and fundamentally, in lots of different ways, we do conscious leadership development, and we try to meet people where they're at in that desire for more consciousness in their organization or more in their own leadership or more even personally for themselves. And we think about that as just knowing your own values and sort of your inner compass, knowing how your systems, your body responds to stress and strain, and being able to have more agency over yourself. And then understanding the context that we've all inherited as leaders, the systems that we've all inherited, understanding the original design and intention of those systems, and then determining how do we want to disrupt that. So that might be in a conscious leadership sort of frame. It might be that a leader is coming to us with a concern about their organization or their leadership team, or they need help with thinking about their own leadership. It also comes from, we do a lot of like personal transformation types of experiences, whether it be leadership retreats, individual retreats. We have a white women's affinity space called Tapestry as well. So you can see, like, even in describing all of that, it's really meeting people where they are at, and trying to bring them in just a little bit deeper to get more support on really being more true to their own values and being able to operate consistent, being able to navigate and flow consistent with their values, in lots of different supportive ways. So how I sort of learned to come to that, and what we were offering was initially, like, we've learned a lot over the last about 7 years about what does it really take to provide holistic support around that. Like, what does that look like? And initially, the offering was very, very common or akin to what I was used to doing inside organizations as a so-called internal consultant in HR, which was helping leaders who were on this journey to doing it differently. Like we all are in the B Corp space. Like, leaders came to us and be like, I see what you're saying about doing it differently. I don't know how to do it differently. Like, how do we do it differently? And initially, we're like, we don't know either, but we know it has to be done differently. And I was only taught how to do it the same, like all the traditional HR ways, which is why I say recovering HR person, because you're taught how to do it in the way that the systems, perpetuate harm. So then the last 5 or so years, when we were really intentionally working on this, has been co-creating along with our clients. How do we do this in a way that is aligned with specific principles and values? Anything related to people. How to do anything related to people, from hiring to every part of the employee life cycle to separating. How do we do this in a way that is mindful of the way it's done in lots of other places? And probably there's some information there about what might be important to consider, but create a way that is full of dignity, respect, trust, transparency, clarity, restoration. So we have a soulful HR practice where we have principles that we follow in designing anything that you do with people inside the organization. And I would say it's super challenging often to figure out how to do that with a lot of different constraints. The reason why many of the traditional practices are, I'd say, like harmful practices, for people inside organizations, were to mitigate risk. And then you have to ask yourself continuously, like, what risk are we mitigating? They were created by employment attorneys and labor attorneys for really good reason, that those people are trained to mitigate risk in the most exceptional circumstances, and aren't factoring in cultural implications of what we do with people and to people inside the organizations. And I'm not talking just about employees or team members, which is what we call them, not employees, but team members. I'm not talking about what just team members have, sort of the impact of the people practices on the team members. I'm talking about like leaders and managers who are asked to do harmful practices, that has an impact on their soul. Organizations who are asked to follow those harmful practices at all levels, even in the sort of the way that the organization operates and how it shows up in the world, when they're doing things that are misaligned with humanity, they cannot thrive in the way that they could otherwise. So we co-create it where we're constantly examining and testing out, like, let's test out a different way to acknowledge that we are not in the right place in the right time together. And so this employment relationship is not working. It doesn't mean that people walk out with a box, which is the way I was taught.
I've been escorted out with a box before.
Oh, yeah, no, I've escorted out many people with boxes. That's the way I was taught it had to be done.
Yeah, what was I going to do?
And it's absolutely unacceptable. There is never a case where that should be done. And we have never done it with any of the clients that we have worked with over the last 7 years, and it's never been necessary. So we're on like a mission to really to share and, again, continue to work on together a very different way of organizations operating with full honoring of people and their amazing contributions, and like the 99% of people that are absolutely doing their best, and really honoring mutuality, that the employment relationship is two ways, that everybody should be getting benefit from that employment relationship, and that when it's not going well, we have the courage and the dignity for everybody to share that and be honest and transparent about it and figure it out together.
Yes. Well, even on the opposite end, people leaving, it's like high five them out the door. Some people like,
Absolutely.
especially, at I won't say a smaller company, but I mean, even you get to these big enterprises and there's certain levels that you're either not good enough, you're either somebody was better than you or whatever. I mean, sometimes it's politics, but whatever. Or we have an excuse to say, well, they only got it because but there's this opportunities where or something better comes along and we leave. And I've worked at a couple places where it became this like toxic environment of like, well, they'll find out the grass isn't greener. And I remember coaching young employees when they'd be like so nervous to leave. And I was at a B Corp and I'm like, look, you have 40 something years of work ahead of you. Like, if you think you're going to be here the whole time, you're sadly mistaken. And like, go out, don't burn any bridges, like put your notice in, do your work, like, and just, but like everybody's benefited from this relationship. We're all
Yeah.
grown-ups and we get it. And
Yeah.
honestly, what you're telling me sounds like an amazing opportunity. And I would be a horrible human to tell you to toe the company line and tell you that like, don't leave. I'm going to tell you to roll the dice and take that opportunity and go. And I think you like, what if we can coach more of that humanity into the business world? I don't know.
Oh, well, what you're talking about, like, love it for sure. And it's so strange, and we talk about this a lot with our clients. It's so strange that we have this like almost like you're coming here for life type of approach, and the organization changes, people change, like change is happening all the time, and then it's like some horrible situation where we part ways, whether it's the employee voluntarily going or a decision that there isn't a match for the person and their skill set at that time. We've made it so stressful to have that systemically as a recognition because of what we do to people when they're no longer there. So meaning we exit them out with the box. So no one ever wants that to happen. So then it's like, then I have to be here the whole time. Like, because the option to be exited out with a box, like I have to avoid that to be happening. And then the other option is like we totally diss them and break them down and demoralize them when they've moved on.
Yeah, well, they sucked anyway.
It's always, they sucked anyway, or we didn't really need them, or good thing they like this.
Oh, good thing. Yeah, good thing they left. Yeah, nobody wanted them anyway.
So toxic, because as you said, then other people are listening to that and listening to how leaders are what they're talking about with the people that have left, and instead of it, awesome, that was what they needed to do. This was amazing opportunity for them, and we are proud that we actually helped to develop them to a spot where they were able to go off and do something super cool. And maybe they come back at some point here. Like, this is all the way that it's supposed to work. But we've created such intensity around departing an organization that people feel like they're stuck inside of it. And it's so abnormal. It's so unhealthy. So what you're saying is so important for organizations to show, and that's why we really spend a lot of time thinking through, like, what does the parting of ways look like? Because we have to take the pressure off of that in order to create a culture where people can actually be real about what's going on for them in any particular direction, whether it's real about, like, this isn't working from a leadership perspective, or the team members, like, this isn't working. It's like that should be the expectation, that that's going to happen at some point, that it's not working at some point. Yet we decide at the beginning that it has to work at all of the points, or else something has gone wrong. And that has created a lot of the people practices that we have that are fear compliance based, and kind of like designed for the 1% of the people that are, even if it's that high, that are trying to do like a bad actor inside the organization. Like, everything's designed for that scenario, rather than the amount of people that are there trying to do their best for that particular period of time. And then at some point, that doesn't make sense anymore. And that's all super normal and okay.
Yes. Yeah, we all recognize somebody that has like their 10-year anniversary. We're like, wow, that's a really long time. But yet we all in our head are like, I'll be here forever.
Right. And nobody should be thinking that they're going to be anywhere forever, because that's totally not normal. Especially now. I mean, we're also like having a hangover from, like, there were times in our history, maybe our parents or grandparents, where, like, being at a place for your whole career was not uncommon. And now that doesn't exist at all. So we're still, like, stuck in a little bit of a time warp around what the practices look like to encourage people to develop themselves, and have the requirement of the organization to invest in the development of their people, to allow them to have choice about what they want to do next and where they want to go. Like, that's what it should be all about. And everyone just doing their best contributions at the time that they're there. So yeah, on a sort of mission to be able to to really take the charge out of that relationship, and the, like, at will employment thing that everyone puts in their offer letters, which drives me absolutely wild. Of like, we're going to tell you right when you started with the organization that at any point we can fire you, and at any point you can leave. We tell all of our clients, like, everybody knows that. You don't need to, like, point it out in your offer letter, which is the way you're welcoming someone into the organization, to remind them that you're going to fire them at any point that you want. Like, not necessary to say that. Everybody knows that. But that, again, is the employment attorneys. Again, bless them, because we really need them at lots of times. Like,
Mm-hmm.
they would put that in to make sure everyone knows their legal rights, and that, like, the risk of people not knowing their legal rights around being at will is so small, because everybody knows that they can leave, and, unless there's some kind of actual employment contract. So we say to clients, like, what do you think the risk of that is, that people wouldn't know that? And wouldn't you rather have them feel really welcomed inside the organization? What's the risk if they don't feel welcomed inside the organization through your offer letter? Much higher than them wondering if, oh, can I be fired at any time, or can I leave here at any time? So we're constantly, like, weighing those things.
Yeah, I think everybody at this point knows.
Yes, everybody knows.
I think we've all, yeah. I mean, I got laid off twice in a year once. That was fun. One of them was the escorted out with a box scenario. You're trying to prove like a new, like, I hate to say new, but like, because even in the B Corp space, you see this like, well, it's not, and I hate to, like, there's a parallel to B Corp, and that we're trying to prove this new form of capitalism works.
Yeah.
But like, you're trying to do it within the HR space, but yet I still feel like there's a lot of B Corps who operate under the, like, well, this is the way we've always done it with regards to like HR. So we're like super forward thinking in a lot of areas, but I don't know that we've gotten there, because even B Corps that I've worked with, that I know, it's still border on some of it, even though maybe there's a little more humanity in a layoff, or there's a little more humanity in some of it. But how have you seen the evolution, and I'd love to unpack your B Corp journey too, your why there, but how have you seen the evolution within like the B Corps you've worked with? Do you feel that there's more, I mean, I know there's more humanity in that community, but do you feel like there's more, or is there more willingness to accept kind of like let's look at this from another lens?
Yeah. Great question. Yeah, you're reminding me when I first got engaged with the B Corp community, which, yeah, we can talk about that in a bit if you like.
There's a romantic proposal. Yes.
Yes, true. I get engaged. or like really got exposed to it, which was after, coming out of being inside organizations and trying to survive, and then realizing that there was all these other cool things that were happening and entrepreneurs putting together lives they loved with careers they loved. And I was like inspired. And I got exposed to B Corps, conscious capitalism, like a lot, all of the ways that you could follow the path towards insisting that we do this differently. I pulled up B Lab, and all respect for B Lab, but I pulled up like the things that they were sharing with B Corps in the HR space to like say this would be what you would do as a B Corp, and like a handbook template or some policies or practices, and it was all what I would call the traditional stuff. And I was like, oh no, like what's happening? Like this can't be. And so like one of my first messages ever to B Lab, this goes back like probably 7 years ago plus, was like, I have a different template for a handbook. Like, could I help like figure out like this handbook can't be the handbook that B Corp's using, because it was all like must and shall and you suck and we'll tell you this and like all the stuff. It was exactly what had been written by the employment attorneys, again, for a particular reason: risk mitigation, not culture. And so, yeah, there's been like an ongoing process where that I think B Corp is maybe learning that over time. It's pretty slow, of like what we would do for people practices. Just as you're saying, like it's misaligned if we're thinking about the way that we want to do our work in the world, but we're still using traditional HR practices. Part of that is that people don't even recognize that some other alternative exists. And most businesses, unfortunately, even B Corps, they might be coming to us, and we have some B Corp clients, but we have some clients that have chosen not to be B Corps, but they're very aligned and like-minded about how they want their organization to run and their leadership to be, and how they want to do their own self-leadership. And sometimes what it takes is really showing that there's an alternative way to be thinking about it. And to your point, they would be more likely to consider it. But the people practices HR part, kind of no matter where you go, very unfortunately from a business perspective, is always an afterthought. Mm-hmm. It's always, we've got to do, when we're putting up a new business, we got to do marketing and product and like revenue generation stuff. And we say the words like, the people do all of that stuff, but we don't actually invest in the infrastructure in most organizations to do the people work in a way that aligns with our purpose. And because it's an afterthought, even in very progressive, like-minded organizations, they often come to terms with it quite late in their like maturity as an organization, where I would argue like it has to be like the first thing you're thinking about. Even for yourself, if you're a solopreneur, like, how do I treat myself? Like, what does leadership look like for me? Like, what do I want this business to be? How does that align with my purpose? Like, those are all the questions we have to ask about all the people. You might be 5-10 years down the line when an organization has gotten to a certain size and they're like, this is out of control. We need someone to help us with our HR. And that should have been embedded from the very beginning. And then you get like all of the old people practices that they've been doing for a number of years. They have to unwind, rather than starting from the beginning with aligned people practices to the purpose, which we thankfully have some clients that we've worked with from the very beginning, that we get to see how that works from the very beginning, rather than undoing. When you have to undo harm, it takes more than twice the effort. And build trust, as we all know, is a huge thing to have to recover from. And when you have the opportunity to do that from the very beginning, which is what I wish would happen always, any new business that's thinking of being started, please prioritize all of this stuff as much as you do what your finance mechanisms are, what your marketing, what your revenue generating. Like, it has to be integrated in from the very beginning. And so that's what we are continuously trying to share, that there is an opportunity to have that happen, and hopefully continually provide support, not only support, but actually alternatives and infrastructure that leaders can get access to, where they don't have to hire consultants to do that, because consultants are expensive and they don't have resources.
I resent that.
We are not a sustainable resource for most organizations, and so figuring out ways to get those alternatives exist out into the world is something that we think a lot about at Conscious Revolution. So that can be more do it yourself, but supported in some way, so that there doesn't have to be this decision point of like I'm barely surviving. I need help with these things, but I don't have access to get the help to figure out how to do this. And so we're trying and working on ways to make that more accessible to people.
And please don't put it in Chat GPT.
No, no,
We don't need to mitigate all risk, but don't write your
don't
policies.
worry
Not
about
your
that. No,
no.
no, that's not going to be what it is.
Last question I have is we talk about like reimagining capitalism, which I'm a shameless plug for my TED talk too. You've talked about reimagining capitalism. I've talked ad nauseum about reimagining capitalism. What would be like the one thing, I guess, to a small business owner, medium business owner, and just a business owner in general? What would be like one small step that they could take tomorrow, yesterday, today to get on that journey? Because I heard you even say like, their values align, but they're not a B Corp, and like we're kind of on the same page with that. Like we don't need like do you have the B tattoo or not? Like so as we just want everybody to do a little bit better and like this incremental progress, what would be your one piece of advice to a business owner listening right now?
Mm. Yeah, I'm going to go pretty like fundamental on the answer to this, which is most of us are walking around the world depleted, under resourced, uh, not able to be creative because energetically, spiritually, in all the ways, we are feeling tired and malnourished in all the ways that you could think. And we actually can't reimagine anything in that state, no less capitalism, which is like so deeply embedded and so deeply embedded in our conditioning as people walking around, that we can't reimagine anything, no less like capitalism, in a depleted state. And the way the systems are designed, if we look at like systemic analysis, it's designed to keep us in depleted states. It's designed to keep us so that we can't come together. It's designed to keep us individualized, competing against one another, designed to keep us separated, divided, in chaos. We see this happening, in a very acute way right now, purposefully, intentionally that way, so that we keep dividing, separating, competing against one another, which is all the fundamentals, of course, of capitalism and lots of the oppressive systems that we're in. And so, individually and in community, replenishing ourselves, nourishing ourselves, connecting with one another, gathering with one another. But it starts with your own self leadership of like, what are my values? What do I need? What do I need to do to resource myself, to creatively approach anything that's happening here? Because the way we've been doing it in all places, HR and all places, we know doesn't work. And what it does to your spirit continuously when you have to keep doing the thing you know doesn't work because you don't know what else to do, because you haven't had an opportunity to be creative yourself and be creative with others and co-create, that's continuing to perpetuate what we're in. So I would say, like, really do an assessment for yourself and step back. Like, what do I need to feel really fully resourced? What does that look like? And when you don't know the answer to that question, which most of us don't, that's the start. Well, who would I need to ask? Who would I need to get help from? Where would I start to feel fully resourced as a human so that I can be in touch with my humanity, and then allow each of us that are in touch with our humanity to create an alternative future together?
That was deep, as the kids
I
say.
think I think I warned you ahead of time that it was going to be.
That was meta or whatever. I don't know. I'm not cool. But no, that was. I mean, again, even for leaders, like how do we lead if we're depleted? I mean, and I've gone through that over the last year too, of just realizing like I have no energy, like you get health, all kinds of stuff, but you're just not your most potential self.
No, you can't respond. You're in a reactive state, again, designed to be that way. If we react, then we create more chaos, we create more harm, we create more division. So like we have to get in a state where it can be responsive in alignment with our values. And we aren't told or taught, or it isn't modeled to us what it means to care for ourselves and be resourced. And to care for the community and resource the community. So
Or as my friend Joey says, who runs Goody Nation, who's been on the podcast, he has a whole thing with the Goody Nation community, and they even have a T-shirt. It's all founders need therapy.
oh yeah.
So they convene not therapy sessions, but they convene community gatherings for founders to kind of get together. But then also he's like, please also get a therapist. Like,
Those same things have come out of my mouth as well. Like we can do these things together, and have you considered therapy? Because like we all need that. Every single person needs that.
and it's so I think, and I've seen it on the guy's side too, where I think we're supposed to be so strong that it's been empowering to have strong men say that to out loud, because then I think it allows some of us who are like, oh, are we allowed to do that? Oh, we're
Yeah.
allowed to. Oh, you said it in public too. Okay, maybe it isn't such a weak thing to do. So it's been cool. Like I'm almost jealous of this next generation. That I said that guest lecturing a couple weeks ago. I'm like, because I ended my thing with like I burned out, and I shared the whole thing, and I'm like, like I go to therapy. I've got a growth coach, all these different things, and I was like, and I'm so jealous of y'all that you live in a generation where this is totally acceptable. Because I waited until I was 42 years old to start doing that. So like, please don't wait till 42. Start now. And they were all like, thank you for being so vulnerable. I was like, didn't know you could be, but I'm embracing it. So I appreciate your vulnerability as well. Like, let's take care of ourselves and make the world a better place.
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
Well, thank you so much for coming on. I feel like we could keep going, but alas, time limits.
Yeah, no, I really appreciate the opportunity to have the really good conversation. And
Yes.
yeah, hope that it continues to just spark some curiosity for people.
Yes. And I'm so glad Elise introduced us. And
Yeah,
yeah,
me
we'll
too.
see. Well, this will be released long after I see you in Asheville, but we'll see you soon, and hopefully again in Milwaukee. And it might, I don't know when we're releasing this, so it might be after we're in Milwaukee. But either way, I look forward to seeing you soon. And yeah, we can recharge and save humanity together.
Yes, awesome. Exciting to do that. And I'll see you next week.
Awesome. Sounds good. Thanks, Tara.
Thanks.
Well, that wraps up another edition of Be the Change Georgia. We're grateful, as always, for the opportunity to serve you with this content and grow this incredible community of purpose-driven B Corp leaders. If you haven't already, we would be grateful for you to rate this show wherever you get your podcasts by simply tapping the number of stars you think it deserves and sharing it with a friend. This helps us get the word out and continue to use our collective influence as a force for good. This podcast wouldn't be possible without the help from our production team at Chat with Leaders Media. Learn how you can launch your own podcast to grow your business at chatwithleaders.com. Thanks again for listening, and now go be a leader worth following.